Hey everybody, it's March, so that means it's time for a new SEO small business newsletter, so let's dive in. Well, a lot is happening. It is March. There's all kinds of things going on. Don't forget, Spring Forward is March 13th, so you will need to set your clocks spring forward ahead. Coming up soon. Tons of stuff, though, happening in March. It's really an interesting time for marketers. It's also that time when it gets warmer, particularly in Ohio, where we're from. So we always really like that. We're kind of looking forward to getting away from the cold into some warmer weather. That would be awesome, and excited to start doing fun things in and around this great city. So this month, we have some interesting things and news. We did win some major awards, so we always like to mention that. Check out our newsletter and website for that information. But it's always interesting to talk about what's going on in March. Statista, if I say that right, reports 2 out of 3 U.S. citizens have a Facebook account. That is pretty mind-boggling to think about. 2 out of 3 citizens have a Facebook account. So a lot of people are on social, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, other things, Snapchat. I mean, there's everything. Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, right? There's all kinds of stuff. So it's really important to remember to always be posting ABP. That's what I always like to remember. Try and post something as you're going out this month. As it starts getting warmer, remember to take some photos. Remember to maybe take a video, step back, and think about how you can improve your business, maybe something you're offering to your clients, and maybe do a little post about it. That's always really beneficial to your customers. So this month we have some little bit of news, not too much happening, but wanted to report some of this stuff. There was an interesting article from Search Engine Journal about click rates, or CTR. What is the best or average click rate in Google Ads? And that was something that kind of is broken down by industry. I can report that all of our click rates are higher than this, which is awesome. But we always hold ourselves to a really high standard. So, it's just one of those things. But you can look at it and, see how things look for you. And then another interesting thing was what's called Index Now for Bing search is now being used. And that basically is a quick way for your website to quickly be indexed or updated on Bing. Google doesn't do this yet. So right now with Google, it takes a while for changes to happen, SEO changes, that kind of thing, sometimes like a week, sometimes 2. It really depends. It can take a while, really, for some of those changes. So Index Now is a really good thing. I hope that Google and others adopt that, because it would be great to know when your content is updated, how it affects your ranking. That would be awesome. Instead, it takes quite a while still. And I think that will be something that happens in the future where it will be updated. There was an interesting mention about Google's John Mueller, who's kind of like their chief SEO architect / evangelist, they call it, at Google. Basically said that had a question about brand mentions. So if somebody mentions your business on their website but doesn't link to you, does that help your business? And the answer really was no, not so much. It helps in kind of a way that somebody might say, if it's a good review, somebody basically would be like, I'll check them out and look at it. But it doesn't really help too much for your business. So you definitely want the link. That's the most important thing. You want to make sure if anybody mentions you on their site, or even if you find stuff later where people talk about you, you get a link. That's really the most important thing, is that you have an actual link on the site, because backlinks are essential to rank. So pro tip, we have a pro tip today, and that is talking about bounce rate. So bounce rate, it's an important measurement that basically measures how users interact with your site. If they go to your site and then quickly leave and they don't do any action, that's like called a bounce. And so the higher bounce rate you have, you really want to get that lower. That's the idea. And so there was an interesting article that basically has 20 ways to reduce your bounce rate on your website. Basically have high value, good content on your site is really important. The first it mentions is load time, which you don't want to be too obsessive about that. I mean, yes, you want it to load fast, but don't worry so much about that. You want to make the site easy to navigate. You want to have good design. You want it to have, top of mind content, short paragraphs, relevant information, all that stuff, really important. Not have distracting things. So all this stuff is just good for you to check out and kind of see how your site might rank on that. All right, so now I want to go into the top client questions of the month. These are the top client questions that have happened for over the last month that I've been getting from clients, from emails, and I want to answer them. So let's dive in. Right here, we have the first question is, can I leave an anonymous review in Google Maps? So no, you can't leave an anonymous review. There are certain ways to obfuscate your name, but that involves changing your Google profile, and it's kind of tedious and a pain, really. So I would say no. Google requires a name and info and Gmail info for you to leave business reviews. Now, I know this is a problem for certain businesses, like, there's some medical and others that might be more sensitive, that they don't want people might feel weird about leaving reviews. I know there's some like matchmakers and stuff that feel that could be a weird thing. In that case, there are other review outlets that you can use. You can also put stuff on your site, but really Google is still the best way to get positive reviews and affect your SEO ranking. You want Google reviews. So good question. The next one is, can we pause our account and come back after a bit? What happens with our ads accounts? So good question. Basically, if you pause Google ads, you have up to 2 years until Google will basically disable your account. With Facebook, it's actually like indefinite. You can be on Facebook for basically forever with your ads and like pause them and they'll just be there, that I've known. But with Google, you do have a hard, fast deadline. It is a fairly long time. That kind of, 18 months to 2 years time frame is where things start, being disabled. Now, that being said, you do want to keep your ads active, even with a small budget if you can, if you think you're going to reactivate them in a few months, because sometimes that can be beneficial to keep the conversion data going so that you're not starting from scratch again. So you can even have a very, very small budget and just like kind of keep it going, and then maybe you'll get a client or two along the way. I mean, not so bad there. So the next question is, what is the difference between impressions and reach in Facebook ads? So that's pretty simple. Impressions is the number of times somebody viewed the content, and reach is the unique viewers. So it's weird they have both those, but I know it's one of those things, so they just have it. The next question, do testimonials on our website help our SEO? So this is something where people on their site might have testimonials where they just go and say like, I really like your service. It worked great for me, Bob. And that's it. There's just, text. That in and of itself doesn't help too much. It helps for user experience, helps for credibility, so it does help that way. They say in like the local pack, it can help 5% on your actual local ads. But I think what more so is meaning there is to have like an embed review link, and there's actually a company that does that called Embed Social, for example, where you can get a plugin that basically has different your ads can be shown or pulled from Google reviews and then shown on your site. So that really helps to make it look good, and it's dynamic, so it updates based on your criteria, like only show ads that are 4.5 stars and above and stuff like that, or pick the specific ads you want to show. That's an option too. Good question. So next one, is geofencing good to spread impressions over a large area of locations or fewer locations? So geofencing is the kind of ads that like Simplify and other businesses do, where they're literally taking like an actual area and saying like, I want to advertise just around a specific area. I want to advertise just around like Kroger or some business, some, grocery store or whatever. And anybody who goes in there, I want to show my ad. It's kind of like a billboard, but here's the interesting thing. So in our experience, geofencing ads have actually had pretty poor conversion rates. And that is basically because when people see a geofencing ad, they're kind of weirded out from what I can tell. And it's a little too personal for the most part. That, especially if it's like, we know you're here kind of thing. And it can be kind of weird. Like if, because most of them are like, in your area is our, business or whatever. People get kind of weirded out. So I've actually had negative experience from geofencing, and I don't recommend it. And I actually have some other people asked in my marketing groups about this, about geofencing, and they've all said that I have two specific examples here where basically they said, one was Luke Chapman, who said, I've had experience from a different company. At the end of the day, they couldn't explain and got defensive when we questioned them about suspicious stuff, blaming our website and Google Analytics. So in other words, they were asking about like, why are we don't see any conversions from you, like what's going on? And then they kind of were defensive. So the funny thing was that they said was all the other paid traffic worked fine. All those conversions worked fine. And then they said drop them quicker than a hot potato. So there's that. And then we also have another one from Greg Finn, who's actually the host of Social Marketing O'Clock podcast. And he basically said, that he's seen a lot of low-level programmatic traffic, that average session duration is a dead giveaway of quality, and actually surprised that we had conversions. Because we had like 5% at most of conversions. And he was even surprised about that. What's the conversion action? It must be pretty light, so it might be like a link, or maybe they're just staying on site. But yeah, I totally agree. And I would actually stay away from geofencing, and I would recommend focusing on geo-targeting, like Google ads and Bing ads and other stuff, where you're more getting around the user, their interests, and kind of promoting it that way versus like going to where they live, where they are, that kind of in-your-face sort of ad style. Not as appealing, really. All right, next question. What are local actions in Google ad conversions? So let's see. Local actions are actions taken by a user in some way. They're actually like map ad actions. So they have to do with the listings. So like if you look up, plumber, and then you see a map here, and then you see an ad, like there are some ads. If you click on that, and I won't, as a service to them, I don't want to charge them for that or whatever. So, but basically, if you click on that, here's one that's not an ad. If you click on that and then click on a website or directions or call, that is actually tracked. And so on Google Ads, you can see local actions will actually say, this is how a user interacted with your site. So that's pretty cool. All right, next question is SMART goals. What are SMART goals in Google Ads? So SMART goals are auto-generated goals created by Google Analytics. And they're good if you don't really know what goals to track, but they're not very good in the sense that they're automatically generated. They're, kind of the basic sort of tracking that Google does. We definitely recommend that you do personal conversion tracking. Was much better using like Tag Manager and go through Cow Abundant, or definitely recommend us. We are really good at conversions. That's one thing that we understand, and so we can track anything on site, like buttons, clicks, all that. And it's anonymous, by the way, so we don't know. We know like generally where you are from. So like you're from Columbus. Maybe you're in like a municipality. We kind of might know that area. But we don't know like who you are and that kind of stuff. So, but basically we can track a lot of really cool stuff to better help deliver relevant ads to people that might actually care about it, because that's the whole idea. So we don't really recommend SMART goals. If you can't avoid them, just don't use them. That's the whole idea. So this month's charity, we always do a charity each month, is Autism Speaks in Central Ohio. We recommend you join us in donating to Autism Speaks. They are located in Westerville, so great, just local organization, and hopefully you can donate some money, as we do each month. We have a charity, and we are doing Autism Society of Central Ohio this month. We have funny memes. We have all kinds of fun stuff in our newsletter, so check that out. Shout out to Jason Barger and the Thermostat Podcast. Check that out. We just hit over 100 episodes. It's a great podcast on company culture and leadership, so do check that out. And hopefully you found this interesting, insightful, all that good stuff. Like and subscribe. If you can hit that like button, it definitely helps for the channel. And then, to share these messages is always great. So if you have any questions or comments about March, what's your favorite holiday of March? We like Pi Day. That's our thing. That's 314. What do you like? There's a link I'll put in the show notes, and let me know. All right. See you, everybody.